Today, I'm going to tell you the top 3 types of exercises that you might be doing to help your back, but they're actually hurting your back. And I'm going to break it up into 3 categories of type of exercise or stretch. And then after each category, I'm going to tell you an alternative where you can get the same benefit that you're actually seeking without the downside or the consequence to your spine. So the first category is trunk twists or twisting stretches that rotate or twist your spine. It's a really common type of exercise that you see people doing in the gym as either a warm-up or just a stretch for their spine to offer relief. But there's certain ways that you can do this stretch that are actually putting a lot of stress on your lumbar discs. For example, doing a twist in the sitting position is not ideal if you have any kind of disc issues, because sitting is by far the most compressive position on the discs. So number 1, you want to get out of the sitting position if you're going to twist or rotate. Next, if you're going to do a rotation type movement, you want to do it from the top down with core control or trunk control, not from the bottom up. Let me explain. The lumbar spine is not designed for rotation. It's not the part of the spine that you're supposed to rotate from. And that's just a biomechanical reason. It's the shape of the vertebrae. When you do a twisting motion, say in the standing position, and you're not using your hips and it's just going straight into your spine, that's coming from the bottom up. And the lumbar spine is going to be the first place that's going to receive that twist or rotation. And since the vertebrae are not really designed to rotate like that, the rotation is mostly going to go into the discs. And that's just another good way to grind and wear and tear on those discs. So by doing the rotation stretch from the top down, you can get the rotation where it's supposed to go. In the thoracic spine, it's much more designed for rotation biomechanically. You want to make sure you're under control. You don't want to do a ballistic type movement that you see people do in a warm-up type thing. You want to make sure that your core and trunk muscles are the ones that are generating that rotation so that they are active and supporting your spine through that rotation. So here are a couple examples of alternative stretches that you can do that can accomplish the rotation that you're seeking in your spine, especially in the thoracic spine, which can offer a lot of relief without the downside. Where you are initiating the stretch from the top down, you can do it under control. You're not in a sitting position, and actually by bringing the knees up in these types of stretches, you're actually locking out your lumbar spine, protecting it from the rotation going into that area. And so these are very well designed stretches that can get you the rotation that you're after and protect your lumbar spine. The next category of exercises that commonly cause flare-ups in the lumbar spine are ab exercises. And you may have experienced this yourself. There are a lot of different types of ab exercises, so we're going to go over a few of them here and really focus on the basic principles that are causing excessive stress on the lumbar spine when doing ab training so that you can understand the concepts, and then I'll offer some alternatives that can train your core muscles in a healthy way without causing damage to the lumbar spine. The first example I'm going to show you is the ab roller, where a lot of people overextend and cause a lot of pain and irritation in their back. And this is the general concept that I want you to understand is overextending with ab exercises. So it doesn't just happen with the ab roller, but as you can see, when you overextend in this exercise, it puts a ton of torque on the lumbar spine, potentially causing it to collapse at a very vulnerable spot. And another common exercise where people overextend their lumbar spine is straight leg lifts or scissor kicks, where people are trying to really get that ab burn. But when you are exercising your abdominals with your legs in a fully extended position, this is putting a lot of compression on the lumbar spine because your hip flexors are in a fully lengthened state. And at the same time, they are contracting very heavily. So there is double the force pulling on the lumbar spine, causing a lot of compression and torque in that area. And that's why if you've tried this exercise, you may have felt some soreness in your lumbar spine later in the day. So if you're going to do some abdominal training in this way, don't extend your legs quite as far and focus more on the core engagement rather than the distance that you're extending your legs. The core engagement is what's going to protect and support your spine from these hip flexors that are pulling on it. And another very common exercise that's not really an abdominal exercise, but I can't skip over it because it's so common that people overextend doing this one, is hip flexor stretches. Just as I was talking about before, the hip flexors attach directly to the lumbar spine. And when you're stretching them, they are pulling on your lumbar spine. And so if you're going to do a hip flexor stretch, you want to make sure that you are stabilizing that region with your abdominal muscles and your entire core before you go yanking on it, because all you're doing when you're stretching your hip flexors is pulling a rope that is attached to your lumbar spine. So you want to make sure that spine is anchored by the other muscles that support it before you start yanking on that rope. And finally, sit-ups. And I know you may be surprised at this one, but curling your spine forward and crunching up like that is not the way you want to be training your spine. It creates a ton of compression and can irritate existing conditions like a bulging disc. And I can't verify this to be true, so if you know, please comment and let us know. But I've been told that the military has even removed sit-ups from certain standardized tests because they know from the research there's a strong correlation between sit-ups and back pain. And so what can we do instead of this extremely common exercise that we've been taught since the beginning of our lives? Stability training, where you're not curling your spine forward or crunching down like that, but you're still engaging and activating your core muscles, but in a more lengthened state that supports good posture. And there's a lot of different exercises that you can do this, such as a dying bug or variations of leg lifts without them going into full extension. The bridge is a fantastic exercise if you do it the right way with a healthy core connection that does protect your lumbar spine. And in fact, I'm a huge fan of turning every exercise into core training, and there's lots of ways you can do this. You can do exercises unilaterally, which activates your core. You can do exercises on top of an unstable surface requiring more core activation for your balance. And you can also just generate your power from your core no matter what exercise you're doing, which ensures that your core muscles are participating in that exercise and giving them more of a workout. The third category of exercises that might be causing excessive strain on your spine are machine weights in the gym. I'm not a fan of machines for several reasons, and one of them is because they typically isolate one muscle or muscle group, which can create muscle imbalances throughout your body, as opposed to doing functional movements that train your entire body synergistically and ensure that your muscles stay in balance with each other. Muscle imbalances are one of the major causes of chronic lower back pain. While it may not be causing immediate pain the second you go home from the gym, you can be creating a monster of underlying muscle imbalances that over time can get worse and worse, which is what happened to me when I was a very young teenager lifting heavy weights, and it can create postural imbalances that cause excessive wear and tear on your spine. So a couple of the machine weights that are my least favorite are knee extensions. We are quad dominant people in this society, and you do not need to isolate and strengthen that muscle. A few others are leg curls, leg presses, seated hip abduction or adduction. These are just not functional movements that mimic natural movements we do in our everyday life. They actually can take our joints through an unnatural arc of motion at times, and especially a machine like the Smith machine for doing squats, and it can cause excessive strain on your joints. Machines also allow you to lift heavier weights than you may be able to do in the real world, and that causes excessive strain on your joints. And finally, because the machines are guiding you through a specific range of motion, you don't need to use your balance muscles or your stabilizer muscles. So it allows muscle groups like the core to just kind of turn off while you're isolating your bicep or isolating your quads, and this is just not the way that we want to train our body. Our core is so hugely important to the health of our spine. It is the muscle group that supports our spine in our everyday life. And so we want to make sure that the training that we're doing in the gym is going to help us in our everyday life and not hurt us by training in ways that turn off our core and bulk up the movement muscles that don't support our spine. This has huge implications for causing excessive wear and tear on the lumbar spine when our power muscles are stronger than our stabilizer muscles. So start from the core and go out. Squats, deadlifts, and just in general, exercises that involve free weights or barbells that you know inherently you're using your full body to do them. So those are great alternatives to machine weights in the gym that have incredible health benefits. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll be back next week to talk about a different topic for getting out of the back pain cycle for good. And until then, get down on the floor and connect to your core.